I'm not here to tell you her story. I'm here to tell you how she's been winning.
Call Her Daddy.
Call Her Daddy podcast hosts have turned on each other.
Quite dramatic and a lot of headline news recently.
But I do want to talk about the Call Her Daddy shit.
We are talking about the drama with Call Her Daddy.
Call Her Daddy, obviously everybody's talking about that.
Probably one of the biggest stories of 2020.
That was nuts.
The marketing tactics Alexandra Cooper used to get to the point she could sign a $60 million contract with Spotify through the business of selling sex. Tip 1, the physical look. Look at Alexandra Cooper. Now look at her old co-host. Both are objectively attractive women and use the way they look to gain an advantage. Think about brands like Calvin Klein, Victoria's Secret, or Paco Rabanne. All use sexual imagery and attractive individuals to create an association with their brand. If this is the case, why would sexual imagery not work for YouTube or podcasts as well? From an attention-generating perspective, physical attractiveness is especially effective in generating attention from men. As from an evolutionary perspective, sex appeal is much more visual for men than it is for women. But this does not mean that being conventionally attractive did not have an appeal on women viewers as well. Quite the contrary. You see, in marketing, there's this phenomenon known as lifestyle marketing. The idea being we emulate a brand and buy a product to be like the individual the brand portrays. A great example of this is Michael Jordan. People bought the shoes to literally be like Mike. The same phenomenon applies to female listeners of the Call Her Daddy podcast. They see these hot, attractive girls who are obviously quite successful and think, wow, if I could be like her, it would be really something. This is the halo effect in action. Take someone hot and associate with any product and people will naturally think better of it. Tip 2, sex sells, obviously. Sex gets clicks. Scroll through any Instagram feed or any Snapchat homepage and the first thing you'll see is cleavage. Why do you think that is? The funny part is that often sex is used to promote mainstream products that are not traditionally associated with sex, used in the short term to grab a viewer's attention. Speaking about a taboo topic in an entertaining way that everybody thinks about but nobody is brave enough to talk about is the primary reason why Call Her Daddy blew up in the first place. It was new and wildly different from anything else at the time, at least in the podcast medium. You see, in hindsight, it's actually quite easy to draw the connection. In the mid-2000s, before YouTube blew up and became what it is today, the best performing TV shows were Gossip Girl and Sex and the City. Both shows are centered around sex and scandals. So while the idea was done before, no one was able to successfully translate it onto the podcasting medium until Call Her Daddy. I mean, it's as descriptive and to the point as one could possibly be. However, this begs the question, if sex sells, why did earlier podcasts that focused on sex not blow up like Call Her Daddy? Podcasts like Poor Minds or Horrible Decisions, ones that focused on sex and had first movers advantage on their side. Well, there are a few factors at play. For one thing, timing was a factor, but more on that at the end. Secondly, Cooper and Franklin were also entertaining, complementing each other with great synergy.
You're not cheating, you're not trying.
Cheater be cheated on, motherfucker!
We're here to teach you how to cheat.
Or how to catch a cheater.
We play both sides on Call Her Daddy.
Making clever jokes and comments that kept the viewers engaged, an obvious testament to their long-standing friendship. But the big difference between the success of Call Her Daddy versus other similar podcasts is the relatability. None of these two were celebrities when they were first starting out. They were just average people like everybody else, with ups and downs and super relatable experiences. They would have conversations just like the ones college-aged girls would have on a regular basis, and as a result, it appealed to college girls, a market generally willing to adopt a new product or technology much quicker than other audiences. Alexandra and Sophia were also brutally honest during their podcast episodes, giving advice to girls on how to get away with cheating or how to make a man jealous. This brutal honesty is a good thing, no matter how controversial it may be, as one of the fundamental building blocks of marketing anything successfully is building a meaningful connection with your audience, which can only be done if you are authentic. And while it might be deemed problematic by some, they only speak to their own experiences and viewpoints and don't claim to speak for anyone else. Up until now, I've given you a lot of the host-based reasons why Call Her Daddy blew up. But what is the biggest reason behind Call Her Daddy's success? The engine of Barstool Sports. Since even before the pandemic, technology and social media have really become the forefront of today's marketing trends, being the first place people go to find something new and the next place they go to share with their friends. Barstool Sports is an empire. one that since its inception in 2003 has gained significant financial backing, be it through their content marketing on podcasts, social media, advertisements, or just blogging. Barstool Sports are a digital media superpower. And as a result, there's no doubt that being a sub-facet of this larger brand will help build awareness. You see, Barstool Sports gave Call Her Daddy a huge advantage over other similar podcasts right from the start. They are at an audience, a presence on social media, and the budget to spend on marketing, using this influence to push out and market Call Her Daddy as much as possible. Pair this with the fact that Barstool Sports, and in particular the frat boy demographic they target, easily helped Call Her Daddy find the target audience most likely to consume their content. College-aged girls with the same experiences as them, and you can see why it was such an advantage. This ultimately established a right time, right place dynamic, as when Barstool Sports began pushing out the Call Her Daddy podcast, college campuses were gripped by female empowerment and hookup culture. Two ideas that obviously had a huge impact on the appeal of a sex-driven podcast hosted by two pretty and relatable women. One thing I also want to point out is the name of the podcast. Daddy was really rising to the front of pop culture. Taking advantage of that trend by associating it with the podcast's name did wonders for branding. Again, playing on the female empowerment dynamic that was sweeping through college campuses. Call Her Daddy hit the white girl college audience and took off. The girls' chemistry made them feel relatable to the people who listened to them, partly because of their similar backgrounds / upbringings, and partly because of how open they were about their past sexual experiences. But that begs the question, how did the controversy affect their popularity? The public feud between Alexandra and her once co-star May at the time had been seen as a negative. But now we can clearly see this actually worked in the favor of the podcast, as evidenced by the fact that Alexandra recently signed a $60 million deal with Spotify. Marketing, at its core, is about getting attention. And as Robert Greene states in his book, The 48 Laws of Power, nobody ever said that attention had to be good. When the feud initially started, the sudden lack of posting and hush-hush behind the scenes spiked immense curiosity in loyal followers, casual viewers, and people who never even heard of the podcast. People like drama. It's why reality TV is as popular as ever today. Of course, often what works in the short term is at the cost of what will work in the long run. And so it remains to be seen how entirely this controversy will affect the popularity of Call Her Daddy. However, even with that being the case, controversy sells, as from an evolutionary perspective, people have a bias towards the negative, as was this attention to the threatening aspects of our environment that kept us alive. This is also why the news generally focuses on negative, because it gets views. While obviously this breakup was not intentionally planned, it still generated free buzz that ultimately led to more publicity. And with that, we are at the end of the video. If you enjoyed, please subscribe and let me know what you want me to do a marketing breakdown on next. Peace.